We saw the gunmen running into the house and moving into strategic locations with the gun and pointing gun to members of parliament, asking them not to move.
Lek Ram Vashnoi is a government minister who's just lost his job, but counts himself lucky to still have his life. He was in Fiji's parliament when 7 armed gunmen stormed in.
The coup leader, George Speight, walked straight beside the Secretary General, and he asked everyone to be quiet, and he announced that it was a takeover, and he has been instructed by the indigenous Fijians to act for them.
For 2 terrifying days, Lek was held with more than 30 other MPs. The parliament became his prison. In his chilling account of Fiji's coup, leader George Speight is cast as a ruthless but erratic man taking extraordinary risks to seize his country.
And if there was any invasion, then he will shoot all the members.
Shoot you?
Yeah, shoot all of us.
Must have been terrifying.
Yes, it has been.
A failed businessman with no political pedigree, George Speight's fight for indigenous rights is the public face of a very private battle for power and profit that could rip Fiji apart. We arrive in Suva at night, a city shrouded in curfew where every movement is checked by nervous police.
Good evening. Australia. Foreign correspondent. Thank you.
Razor wire barricades block the roads to Parliament, and it's here at midnight we find the country's Deputy Police Commissioner sharing communal cups of kava to help boost his men's spirits.
The President's instructions are that the media has to keep away 1 kilometre from the Parliament.
Why has that order been given?
You would know better.
No, but why? Why?
You should know better why the President is killing the publicity for the guy.
Daybreak reveals the damage done as looters cashed in on the coup that ousted elected order. There are fears of more violence, and so Suva's streets have been empty. Instead, people have been travelling to the other side of town to hear a man who wants their country. To get there, they leave government authority to walk through no man's land, the leafy hill leading to a parliament taken hostage by George Speight's gunmen. Hundreds walk it every day, even in the tropical heat.
Had a chance to come in, so that's very nice. Sorry, I've been running up the hill.
And it's here too, in this very South Pacific coup, the world's media is allowed daily audience to hear George Speight's vision of a new Fiji.
So no more of this Western-style democratic elected box. Right. First, let's cement a political system that enshrines indigenous supremacy, and then let's define the role of the other ethnic groups in Fiji.
But it's up close you find a man whose mood quickly swings from knockabout charmer to angry coup leader, especially when asked about the health of his key hostage, Prime Minister Mahendra Chaudhry.
But I'm not interested in what the world thinks about Mr. Chaudhry's well-being. This whole scenario here is for the world to focus attention on what we Fijians want. Okay? And I think it's about time you realize that.
No, we are.
So help us.
Sure.
Take to the world the fact that we're unhappy. Meanwhile, be rest assured Mr. Chaudhry's fine. You know, we've had 100 years of suppression. He's only had 4 days of discomfort. It's no comparison. Let me go.
Thank you, sir.
He has reason to be sensitive. Speight's henchmen have twice beaten Mr. Chaudhry for refusing to resign, but others have been less intransigent. After 2 days in captivity, often in a darkened room, Speight's men called each MP to the door, covered their face with a balaclava, and led them to a room where George Speight was waiting.
I was given an option of just a very little moment on the point of the gun to make my choice, and life or death. So then I asked, what you want me to do? He said, you write here that you're resigning from your seat. So I did exactly that, and I signed. I resigned from my parliament seat.
Because I have suspended government and I've thrown out the constitution. You know, whether they resign physically or not, as far as we're concerned, they're not coming back. And that's it.
To find members of the government still free, we have to cross town to the headquarters of what's meant to be the ruling Labour Party.
But there will be no dialogue or negotiation under duress in any form.
Huddled round the radio for presidential updates are ministers and party chiefs. Labour Party President Korai Jokobeki is the leader of the Senate. Instead, she's leading efforts to try and save the lives of a government.
I felt that the coalition government was doing so well. And to have this, it's about turn to what has been done to this government.
Industrial Relations Minister Ratu Tavita Momadonu, now chief spokesman for a government in exile in its own city, warns backing down to blackmailers is the death of democracy.
If that is led to happen, then every 5 years we'll have a similar experience. A group of thugs will just come out and look, we don't like this man. So it's a question of democracy, really.
While the Labour Party is being outmanoeuvred, Fiji's ethnic Indian population has been scared out of the capital Suva and remain vulnerable targets of racism in the only place they can call home.
I think the future in Fiji, especially for the Indians, it's not secured.
We're going to die like this.
Running most of the country's biggest farms, Indians lease traditional land from indigenous Fijians. It's the only way they can survive. But many of the leases are starting to expire.
It is beyond our expectation, and I thank the people for placing the trust and confidence in the Fiji Labour Party and its coalition.
Keeping his election promise to better protect Indian farmers, when he won power, Prime Minister Chaudhry flagged moves for better lease extensions.
He was trying to push very strongly his own insistence for the retention of legislation that enables the tenancies of farms to be renewed automatically for 30 years.
In Fiji, where land is more than just a commodity and indigenous rights are so emotionally attached to land, it was Chaudhry's political weak spot. That's when the extreme nationalist Taukai movement started its public marches demanding greater indigenous rights and the removal of an Indian Prime Minister. As the opposition campaign gained momentum, Fijians who had signed new leases a few years ago suddenly started demanding Indians leave. Displaced families were paid 28,000 Fijian dollars by the government, giving more ammunition to opposition Fijian politicians beating the nationalist drum.
Politicians and parties which had lost power have tried to use the leverage of land to put pressure on the government and actually to use that perhaps to bring the government down, and that's really what has been happening.
But beyond the sensitive land issue, there's an even more compelling reason why Chaudhry's election victory was so hated by the previous power brokers and their cronies. Chaudhry was cancelling the previous government's lucrative privatisation deals.
It brought to an end a lot of very lucrative consultancies for overseas and local corporations, and you see some of these names cropping up in terms of support to the self-proclaimed regime. You see some of these characters actually involved in the organising, etc., that have been going on.
But it's out in Fiji's interior you find the biggest deal of all, a deal linked to none other than George Speight himself.
So all these ones here, this is the mahogany?
Fiji has the world's largest reserve of mahogany, worth $250 million US. It's the nation's biggest resource deal since independence, and it's ready for harvest.
The people of Fiji, what they want because of the land.
Landowners like Saula Vasu support George Speight's coup, and it's no wonder. Saula would have already been receiving royalties for the government-owned trees on his land if George Speight's plans had gone through. Under the last government, George Speight was the CEO of Fiji Hardwood Corporation, the statutory authority responsible for managing the timber and helping find a suitable partner.
The government now says Speight should have declared his conflict of interest over the matter.
But as Fiji TV station Fiji One recently revealed, George Speight received money from one of the key bidders, Trans Resource Management, or TRM, while he was in that key position.
Now, in this particular case, apparently there was a lot of conflict of interest. It may be also bordering on the illegal.
TRM says it was for work Speight had done before he was in that job, but it didn't appear that way.
But the government says due to all the revelations, the whole mahogany deal will have to be investigated.
At a meeting, according to an eyewitness, Mr. Speight suddenly appeared and said he had a far better deal with TRM, which suggested that to some people that TRM had another look at the documents after putting their own tender in.
One of the Chaudhry government's first acts was to sack George Speight from the Fiji Hardwood Corporation and review the deal.
The government will look at the entire processes. We will have to carry out a thorough investigation into the whole deal, not only this, but also the past deals on timber and forest resources.
TRM's got nothing to do with me.
Speight told me his government would bring back TRM. Facing currency charges over the deal and chased by a string of failed business ventures, the coup may have been Speight's way of clearing his personal slate. But no one believes this is his coup alone, and there are many, including those outwardly trying to solve the crisis, who would not be too unhappy if Speight succeeds.
I don't know. I'm not the architect of this thing. I'm just the chairman of the Council of Chiefs.
Guys are playing around with our constitution.
Don't blame me.
We have learned Prime Minister Chaudhry had quietly started a major investigation into the $200 million debt that led to the collapse of Fiji's national bank.
There were many actors involved. A lot of them are good guys now. A lot of them are bad guys now. Thousands of people took advantage of the post-coup political situation as a means of accessing, the bank vault.
A 1995 audit named many in the former government led by Sitiveni Rabuka, including leaders of the nationalist Tauke movement, as those who owed money to the bank.
This was after 1987, and Tora was just one of them. And there was a big list which came out in the local press. I think it was in the Fiji Times. The who is who in Fiji, starting from the top down. When I say the top, you know what I mean. Yeah.
It was exactly these politicians who lost their vested interests and could have been exposed by Chaudhry's election victory.
A lot of Fijian politicians lost out and they wanted to get back on the gravy train. So a lot of the trouble, a lot of the agitation that has been aroused against Chaudhry in the last 12 months was caused by people who wanted their old cushy positions back.
People who lost out because of the election.
And were using the nationalist flag as a pretense.
And to go that extra mile and actually storm Parliament, they needed a gutsy hothead with a grudge against Chaudhry who could still articulate the nationalist creed. As the next tense stage of his power play unfolded, Speight invited me to share a calming brew of kava. The coup was clearly taking its toll. He was tired and hungry, and for a few moments let down his guard to reveal a chilling resolve.
The Council of Chiefs.
Yeah, I know.
And his son-in-law, his stepson.
It's pretty drastic. I mean, you don't strike me as the sort of guy that would actually kill somebody to try and leave.
Not without a reason.
Yeah. But if they wanted to walk out of there, you would.
They know that I'll kill them if they walk out of there, so they want to.
With the government in his control, the only person in Speight's way of total victory was the president, Ratu Sirkamasisi Mara, who refused to scrap the constitution and endorse Speight's leadership. It was a mistake not to arrest the president?
It wasn't a mistake at all.
It was quite deliberate.
I could easily have done it, but we chose not. We considered it as an option, actually, to place him under detention. We never would have a problem, but see, from a chiefly perspective, we said the opposite.
Oh, I see. To arrest such a paramount chief.
It would have really put us up at great council of chiefdom.
As a mixed-blood latecomer to Fijian nationalism, Speight badly needs the Great Council of Chiefs backing. It's the most powerful retainer of traditional Fijian authority, and the council could condemn Speight as a nationalist pretender. Many expect the chiefs to back President Mara, himself a high chief, against Speight's violent upstarts.
Just move some more this side. We'll go back. Move some more this side because they're going to push it.
But then Speight's fortunes took a dramatic turn. A delegation from the Great Council comes to him with extraordinary concessions. They included the unconstitutional removal of the Prime Minister, a post-trial amnesty for Speight and his men, a share in power on an interim 3-year government, and changing the constitution to make sure no Indian ever again serves as the Prime Minister of Fiji.
Welcome to you people.
Is it a victory, sir, at this stage? Mr. Smith? Soon. It's all going well? But still, it wasn't enough. In fact, Speight was angry because the deal ignored his main demands, which now included the sacking of the president himself.
Number one, it was the abrogation of the 1997 Constitution. Number two, the pardoning of the George Speight and his men. And number three, the blessings to George Speight's administration.
But how could a group of armed thugs, ostensibly fighting for Fijian rights, reject Fiji's highest traditional authority? It's because what started for the world as a push to rid Fiji of an Indian Prime Minister is, in fact, a fight among rival Fijians for political power.
There's been a revival of, people say, tribalism, certainly regional rivalries. It all come to a head. And the Western Fijians who, for one reason or another, found himself in a position of subordinacy for a long time, and now became to resent the fact that power was in the hands of the Eastern Fijians, personified by Ratu Mara, the president.
Most of Speight's gunmen and some of the politicians he's installed are from his Western birthplace. And with the covert backing of his tribal chiefs, Speight's now trying to control the Council of Chiefs itself. Seen by many common Fijians as corrupt and increasingly out of touch, if the Chiefs' Council doesn't bend to Speight's will, he'll even challenge them.
There will be a fight between the people versus the chiefs, and there will be this conflict of interest, which will, I suppose, will also result on the people themselves questioning how real is the Great Council of Chiefs in terms of addressing the aspirations of their own people.
President Mara's temporary resignation gives Speight another win, but he'll hold the hostages until he gets legal immunity and probably even a share in the army's interim power. Negotiations for that will be tough. But the forces Speight represents have emerged as much more determined and deep-rooted than anyone thought when a disgruntled nobody strode through the doors of Parliament to kill Fiji's democracy.